Alright, you guys, the following memoir was written by Copas from Salinas. It's called Pelican Bay's Concrete Tomb. Imprisonment entails the loss of the most fundamental of freedoms, the freedom of choice and the freedom to move about as one pleases. Prisons are designed with the intended purpose of keeping convicted felons incarcerated for the time prescribed by law. While the concept of rehabilitation is meant to deter a prisoner's miscreant behavior, affording them life learning skills, educational and vocational opportunities for self-improvement. When a man or a woman is convicted in a court of law and subsequently sentenced to a term of imprisonment, his or her removal from society, away from their loved ones, is the extent of their punishment. He or she is carted off to prison to be bullied, experimented on, or to be physically and mentally tormented. It's not part of the sentencing package. With overcrowding, the lack of prisoner job assignments, inadequate educational programs, and idle time, prisons are becoming the mass producers of twisted and embittered minds. Society need not be fixated on foreign people wearing suicidal explosives. Its focus should be more on its homegrown ticking time bombs. In its dire need of prison guards, the Department of Corrections will oftentimes fail to thoroughly screen new recruits, leaving itself susceptible to the hiring of prison guards who have personal, serious issues, pre-existing prejudices such as drug addiction, alcohol, and in some cases, a mental disorder. For example, in California's Folsom State Prison, a high-ranking correctional officer struggling with alcoholism and marital problems began targeting prisoners he had it out for. He would fabricate information claiming the prisoner was either a rat or a child molester, two of the most hated and deadly stigmas a man in prison does not want to be branded with. The prisoners targeted were either assaulted by other prisoners or forced into protective custody for the remainder of their time. This same guard was later found dead inside his vehicle, parked near the institution. A bloody baton with strands of hair were found inside the trunk, along with the gun he had used in an apparent murder-suicide. After murdering his girlfriend, he killed himself. That he was an alcoholic and having an extramarital affair was known to his co-workers and to a prison administration who chose to turn a blind eye to what has become part of the norm throughout the prison system. In a federal correctional facility located in Coleman, Florida, a guard working the security housing unit deliberately placed one prisoner into a cell occupied by a mentally ill inmate with a propensity toward extreme violence. The move was in retaliation for having disrespected the guard earlier that day. The mentally ill prisoner had been previously instructed to rough up the one who had just been placed into his cell. As payment, the guard gave him a pack of cigarettes and left. Later that same day, the guard returned to check on the two prisoners. What she found was more than she bargained for. The inmate she had paid off was lying on his bunk, blowing smoke rings from a cigarette. The other prisoner was stretched out on the floor in a pool of blood. He had been beaten to death. This is the price and value of human life behind the walls. The incidents are among countless cases of alleged employee misconduct detailed in reports by the Independent Inspector General of the State of Corrections Department. Prison guard abuses highlighted in the reports produced every 6 months raise questions about how effectively the state and federal prison system hires and polices its sworn peace officers. However, in all fairness, there are many dedicated professional prison guards who believe in second chances and who duly exercise prison policy with sound discretion. Guards who recognize and respect a prisoner's constitutional right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment and who have gone as far as risking their own life in defense of a prisoner being assaulted by other inmates. Yet, not enough of them to offset the moral balance needed in keeping rogue and abusive guards at bay. A prison administration's primary responsibility is to oversee the security and orderly running of its institution. While a prison guard's duty is to see that the prisoners are following and obeying the rules and regulations set forth by the Department of Corrections. Unfortunately, there is an unwritten rule permitting rogue and abusive guards the absolute right to vex and harass prisoners with impunity. The incidents mentioned throughout this journal are so widespread that it became paramount for me to share with those that might have a loved one in prison and to further provide society with a glimpse into the underbelly in America's prisons. I was in the Security Housing Unit, SHU, in Pelican Bay State Prison when I began to write these accounts. Unknown to me at that time, my objective proved more difficult than I had imagined. When my notes were first discovered during a routine shakedown, they were considered inflammatory and thus confiscated and destroyed by the Goon Squad. The Goon Squad is made up of a team of correctional officers whose duties are to search for weapons and gather information on gang activity. But these particular COs were thugs in uniforms who roamed the hallways like a pack of crazed hyenas, vexing and harassing prisoners. A target in their crosshair I did not want to become. Like other prisoners before me, I didn't want to one day leave the SHU in a body bag or left crippled with some mental disorder caused by one too many beatings. So in order to keep the heat off me, I quit writing altogether for a long while. When I finally returned to my writing, it was no longer an objective. It had become more of a pressing need. I wrote in the wee hours of night by the light that filtered in through the perforated plated door. I wrote cryptic sentences that appeared to be nothing more than the rantings of a madman. The thugs in uniforms were okay with this. To them, I had simply become just another burnt-out gangbanger. As you read on, you will find the mention of various insects sprinkled throughout this journal. A spider in monotony, a June bug in season of rationalization, and a damsfly and a dark-winged stranger. I hadn't given much thought to these insects during my initial notes until well after I had dissected them into my writing. It was then when I realized how truly symbolic they had been in helping me to better understand my situation and dire surroundings. Those insignificant little creatures became instrumental in opening my mind to the premise that everything small and great that touches our lives has a reason for doing so. It was in this solitude where I found myself at the lowest point in my life. And it was here where I found strength in the power of prayer. It sustained me during those trying times and strengthened my will to resist. It's how I am able to fend off the demons that continue to barge into my dreams to this day. I would also like to mention one of the greatest motivators that has pushed me towards the completion of this journal is the reminder of all who remain in solitary confinement struggling with their own demons. I pray they find solace in the knowledge that by and through my writings, your voices will be heard. Know that you will not be forgotten in your lonely isolation. And to those out in the free world who continue to cling to the idea that all who fall short of the law are bad people and well deserving of a lifetime of imprisonment, I say, open your mind and heart to the fact that many who have fallen short of the law are not bad people. They, like everyone else, had simply made a bad choice. They too have self-worth and are quite capable of being productive members of society, if only given a chance. And most of all, if just one sentence throughout this entire journal changes the negative trajectory that one is currently on, then all the pain, all the heartaches, and wasted years I have endured have not been in vain.